There was a version of you that handed everything away. A single raised eyebrow was enough to shatter your confidence. One critical comment, and you spent the entire drive home mentally rebuilding your case. Someone didn't respond to a message, and you lost an afternoon wondering what you had done wrong. You were so open, so incredibly available to the world's opinion of you, that almost any outside noise could find its way in and start rearranging the furniture. And maybe, that version of you isn't entirely in the past. But here is the truth, that isn't a flaw. It's just an unfinished education. Nobody ever handed you the manual for this. Nobody ever sat you down and explained that most of the things you react to don't actually require a reaction. That an insult only gets power when you decide to pick it up. That the chaos around you only moves you if you let it find a foothold inside. This single insight is what the Stoics built an entire philosophy upon. They understood that between the noise of the world and your response to it, there is a gap. At first, it's small, nearly invisible, but absolutely everything lives in that space. Your composure, your clarity, your power. It's the home of the version of you that cannot be rattled, manipulated, or diminished by things you were never meant to carry. Now, learning to act as if nothing bothers you isn't about becoming unreachable. It's about becoming selective. It's about deciding what actually deserves your energy and deciding who gets access to your peace. Most people hand that access out freely without even realizing it. You don't have to. And if you're ready to stop giving it away, I want you to drop the word unshakable in the comments. Let that be your line in the sand, a commitment right here on Stoic Code. Think about the last time someone really got under your skin. Maybe it was a comment at work, something dismissive that implied you weren't quite good enough. Maybe it was a text message that came across wrong, a tone that felt like a slight. Or maybe it was just someone cutting you off in traffic, somehow managing to ruin the next 20 minutes of your morning. You replayed it. You rehearsed the perfect comeback you should have said. You let it bleed into the rest of your day, like a drop of ink spreading in water, coloring everything it touched. And here's the brutal truth about that moment, the other person probably forgot about it 5 minutes later, while you carried it for hours. That is the true cost of reactivity. It's not just the flare of anger or the sting of embarrassment, it's a tax. It's the invisible toll that every unchecked reaction takes on your energy, your focus, and your sense of self. Every time the world pushes and you automatically push back, you're spending something you can't get a refund on. Psychologists call this the amygdala hijack. It happens when your brain perceives a threat, and to a reactive mind, an insult can register just like a physical attack. Your rational thinking gets overridden, and you're no longer responding with your full intelligence. You're operating from the most ancient, reactive part of your nervous system, fight, flight, or freeze. It's designed for survival, but it's terrible for modern life. And the people who know this, they use it against you. There is a reason skilled manipulators provoke. There is a reason certain people can push your buttons with such precision. Because a reactive person is a predictable person. Once someone knows what moves you, what insults sting, what situations unravel you, they own a map to your control panel. And they will use it, consciously or not, every single time. Marcus Aurelius understood this back in the 2nd century. He was ruling an empire from the middle of constant crisis, and he wrote to himself in what we now call the Meditations. It wasn't for publication, it was private discipline. It was a reminder that external events held no power unless he granted it to them. That the chaos outside was real, but the chaos inside was a choice. Most people never examine this. They live their entire lives believing their reactions are simply who they are. They think that if something bothers them, it's because it deserves to bother them. That their emotional responses are honest, automatic, and beyond their control. But what if that's just the story that keeps you stuck? The Stoics weren't trying to make you cold. They were trying to show you something far more valuable, that between every provocation and every response, there is a space. And in that space lives your power. Consider Epictetus. He was a slave, not metaphorically, but literally. His freedom wasn't a theoretical concept, it was physically absent. One account tells us his master once twisted his leg, just to demonstrate control. Epictetus, without flinching, simply said, "You're going to break it." the leg broke, and he remained calm. That story isn't about pain tolerance, it's about the absolute refusal to let external conditions determine your internal state. Epictetus eventually gained his freedom, went on to teach philosophy, and became one of the most influential Stoic thinkers. His central teaching was radical in its simplicity: there are things within your control and things outside it. Your opinions, your desires, your responses, these are yours. Everything else, other people's actions, the weather, your reputation, your circumstances, these are not. The moment you stop trying to control what was never yours to control, something shifts. You become, as he described it, undefeatable. Not because nothing can harm you, but because nothing can reach you in the way that matters most. Marcus Aurelius took this framework and applied it to an empire. He faced barbarian invasions, plague, economic collapse, and personal betrayal. His co-emperor died. His wife was suspected of infidelity. His own son would later become Rome's greatest disappointment. And yet, the Meditations reads not as the journal of a broken man, but of someone perpetually returning to center, reminding himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That isn't a motivational poster, it was a man's daily survival strategy for governing the most powerful empire on earth while holding himself together. Seneca, writing from Rome's aristocratic circles, captured the emotional cost even more directly. We suffer more in imagination than in reality, he wrote. If you've ever spent 3 days dreading a conversation that took 3 minutes and went fine, you know exactly what he meant. The mind amplifies. It dramatizes. It rehearses catastrophe. Untrained, it pulls you into suffering that exists entirely in your head. What the Stoics understood, all three of them, across different lives and circumstances, is that the world will always be noisy. People will always be difficult. Setbacks will always arrive uninvited. The variable isn't the chaos, the variable is you. Specifically, how deeply you let it in and how long you let it stay. This isn't passivity, it's precision. There's a word the Stoics use that often gets misunderstood: apatheia. It doesn't mean apathy in the way we use it today, that hollow, disconnected numbness. That's not what they were after. Apatheia, in the Stoic sense, means freedom from destructive passions. It means the absence of being ruled by emotion, not the absence of emotion itself. This is a critical distinction. One of the most common misreadings of Stoicism is that it asks you to become a stone, expressionless and detached. People imagine someone suppressing everything, white-knuckling their way through difficulty, pretending the world isn't affecting them while quietly dying inside. That's not this. What the philosophy actually proposes is more sophisticated than suppression, it's reappraisal. It's the trained ability to encounter a provocation, an insult, a crisis, and pause long enough to ask, does this actually deserve my energy? Not whether it's unpleasant, not whether it's unfair. Those things may be true, but whether it merits the response your body wants to give it automatically. Cato the Younger understood this intuitively in the political arena of late Republican Rome. He was surrounded by men who used provocation as a weapon, especially Julius Caesar. Caesar was brilliant, charming, and politically ruthless. He understood that destabilizing your opponents emotionally was half the battle. A flustered senator is a compromised one. But Cato refused to be baited. Not out of fear, not out of weakness, but because he recognized the provocation was the trap. Stepping into it meant surrendering the ground he stood on. That composure became his reputation, his power, his identity. Here's what this kind of indifference, properly understood, actually gives you. It gives you back the response instead of the reaction. A reaction is automatic, it happens to you. A response is deliberate, you choose it. The difference between those two things over a lifetime is the difference between being driven and being the driver. When you practice acting as if nothing bothers you, you aren't pretending the thing didn't happen. You're deciding what it means. You're choosing how much of your internal real estate it gets to occupy, and for how long. You're exercising the only freedom that truly belongs to you. The Stoics didn't promise that life would stop being difficult. They promised something better, that difficulty would stop having the same power over you. And as Marcus Aurelius might have whispered to himself on some late Roman night, that is enough. So what does this actually look like in real life, on a real Tuesday, when someone says something that lands wrong and your chest tightens before your brain catches up? It starts with the pause. Not the dramatic, theatrical pause where you visibly compose yourself, but the internal one. The fraction of a second, or the practiced minute, where you create just enough distance between what happened and what you do next. Viktor Frankl, who survived the Nazi concentration camps and built an entire philosophy out of the experience, described it simply: between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. The Stoics called this prosoche, self-attention. The practice of watching your own mind in real time. Not judging it, not suppressing it, just seeing it clearly enough to choose what you do next, rather than being carried by what you feel right now. In practice, it looks like this. Someone criticizes your work in a meeting. Your instinct says defend, justify, strike back. The practice says pause. Ask internally and honestly, is there anything true in what they said? If yes, that's useful information, not an attack. If no, then their opinion is simply data about them, not a verdict about you. Either way, you are not required to react. You can respond, or you can choose silence. Silence, deployed with composure, is often the most powerful statement in the room. Someone tries to provoke you. They understand your pressure points and push deliberately. The untrained mind takes the bait, because taking the bait feels like justice, like standing up for yourself. But here's the inversion the Stoics offer: not reacting is winning. The person who can walk away unmoved hasn't lost the exchange, they've ended it on their terms. This doesn't mean you become passive or allow genuine harm without response. Stoicism is not pacifism. In the face of injustice, it's the insistence that your response comes from clarity, not from wound. That you act when it serves a purpose and stay still when it doesn't. Build this muscle slowly. Start small. The next time a minor frustration arises, traffic, a slow cue, a thoughtless remark, catch it. Name it. And then let it pass without feeding it. You won't always succeed. You're not supposed to. The practice is in the returning, not the perfection. Because every time you choose the pause over the reaction, you're not just managing a moment. You're slowly becoming someone that the world cannot move. Here's what changes when you actually build this. Not overnight, not after one video or one good week, but slowly, steadily, through the accumulation of small choices. The provocation you didn't chase, the bait you didn't take, the reaction you swallowed not out of fear but out of power. Something in you begins to shift. People around you notice first. There's a quality to someone who cannot be rattled that most people find both calming and a little unsettling. Calming because they create stability, unsettling because they're unpredictable in the most important way. You can't move them with the tools that move everyone else. Insults don't land the same way. Provocations don't produce the expected response. Chaos doesn't unravel them. This quality has a name, it's called presence. Real presence. Not performative confidence or loud authority, but the quiet, immovable kind that comes from a person who knows exactly where they stand and cannot be pushed off it. Marcus Aurelius had it. Cato had it. You've almost certainly met someone who had even a fraction of it, and you remember them, because people who are genuinely unshakable leave an impression that the loudest people in the room rarely do. But the deeper transformation isn't about how others see you. It's about your relationship with your own life. When you stop being at the mercy of every opinion, every setback, every moment that doesn't go your way, you stop spending your energy on recovery. You stop burning hours replaying conversations, nursing grudges, rehearsing arguments that will never happen. You stop outsourcing your emotional state to people and circumstances you cannot control. And all of that reclaimed energy goes somewhere. Into clarity. Into focus. Into building the things that actually matter to you. The Stoics weren't chasing peace as an end in itself, they were clearing the ground so something real could grow there. Equanimity wasn't the destination, it was the foundation. That's what "act as if nothing bothers you" really means. Not performance. Not pretending. Not the cold removal of someone who has stopped caring. It means becoming someone who has decided, deliberately, repeatedly, at cost, that their inner world is not available to the chaos outside it. Every time you react, you hand over your power. Every time you don't, you take a little more of it back. The Stoics spent their entire lives practicing this. They didn't claim to have mastered it. Marcus Aurelius wrote reminders to himself until the day he died. So start today. Start small. Start with just one moment, one pause, one choice, one breath between the provocation and the response. That's where it begins. If something in this video hit home, if you felt even a flicker of recognition, leave a comment below. Write, "I am unmovable." Let that be your commitment, not to anyone watching, but to yourself. And if this is the kind of content that speaks to you, make sure to subscribe to Stoic Code and turn on the notifications. We are just getting started, and where we're going, only the unshakable will follow. Thank you for being here. Stay still, and stay strong.